Hello friends. In this video, we will take a look at the recently released air quality monitoring sensor from SONOFF. The device combines the most important sensors that determine the concentration level of carbon dioxide, as well as air temperature and relative humidity. As a physical interface, the manufacturer chose Wi-Fi 2.4 GHz, and as the logic, the Universal Matter Protocol, supported by all major smart home management systems. This will make it possible to connect the device not only to the native Ewelink smart home management system, but also to Apple HomeKit, Google Home, Home Assistant, which I will show in this video. In addition, the air parameters are also displayed on a fairly large screen. More details next, but before we begin, as usual, I ask you to like this video so that more people interested in the smart home topic can find it, and also subscribe to my channel if you have not done so before. Model, SONOFF SAWF-08P. Device type, air quality monitor. Measured parameters, carbon dioxide level, temperature, and humidity. Interface, Matter over Wi-Fi 2.4 GHz. Screen, black and white, diagonal 3.73 inches. CO2 sensor type, IndiJar. Measurement ranges, CO2, from 400 to 5000 ppm. The accuracy here specifies two parameters plus or minus 50 ppm and plus or minus 5%, as I understand it. This depends on the current reading level. Temperature, from 0 to 50 degrees Celsius, with an accuracy of 0.5 degrees. Relative humidity, from 5 to 95%, with an accuracy of 3%. Power supply, USB-C, 5 volts. Additional, sound alert, and LED indicating air condition. Dimensions, 103 by 70 by 26 millimeters. The device is supplied in a box designed in the standard style of this manufacturer. On the front side, there is an image of the sensor itself, logos of the native ecosystem, as well as Google Home and Amazon Alexa, in addition, the Matter logo. On the back side, as usual, a brief list of parameters that I have already described. What is interesting, compatibility with Apple HomeKit is not indicated anywhere, although the presence of Matter clearly points to this. We will definitely check it a bit later. Let's see what's in the box. Under the lid, we see the instruction manual, a square cardboard flyer, and underneath them is the sensor itself. Here is everything that was found inside. The air quality monitor, a USB-C power cable. Note that there is no power adapter, and the mentioned instruction manual and flyer. The flyer contains a QR code that leads to a video instruction, but I think that this video will also help you understand the device. On the reverse side, a memo on working with the physical buttons. There are 3 of them, and with their help you can put the device in a pairing mode, change the temperature scale, calibrate temperature and humidity values, control the operation of the built-in beeper and LED. As usual, for SONOFF, the instruction manual, although small, is multilingual. An important point, it must be kept, and if you have several such devices, you should somehow mark its belonging to a specific one, since a QR code needed for pairing is glued into it. There is nowhere else. The sensor has a rectangular shape. Most of the front side is occupied by the screen. It is designed for desktop installation and requires constant stationary power. At the top are those same 3 buttons that were described on the flyer. With their help you can enable pairing mode, control the beeper and LED, set calibration offsets, and switch the temperature scale. On the side parts there are air intake holes necessary for taking measurements. The back side of the sensor. Here is the USB-C connector for connecting the power cable. The type and model of the device are indicated, as well as the requirements for the power adapter, which, let me remind you, is not included, 5 volts, 1 ampere. The actual power consumption measurement, I will show later. For ease of installation, the manufacturer has provided a fold-out stand that allows the sensor to be securely placed on a table. After power on, the sensor immediately displays the current air parameters and enters pairing mode. And before moving on to the logical part, the actual power consumption measurement in operating mode, slightly more than 0.2 watts. Therefore, almost any power adapter will be suitable here, and when using backup power, consumption will be very economical. The basic device management system for SONOFF devices is Ewelink. although Matter support makes the review subject a universal sensor. Another important point, with any connection option, the smartphone or tablet used for it must be connected to Wi-Fi 2.4 GHz. I clarify, this is relevant for any connection option. You can return to a higher speed band immediately after that. The sensor is detected and connected to the system. Since it works via Wi-Fi, no gateways are required for it. Another reason why it is worth, at least initially, connecting it to the native system is checking the firmware version. In my case, the latest version was installed, no updates were offered. This is what the device plugin looks like. Quite minimalistic. The system immediately suggested choosing a city to receive tips on improving air quality, which I did. All three parameters are displayed here: temperature, humidity, and carbon dioxide level. In addition to numerical values, their assessment. In this case, it suggested that I ventilate for 10 to 15 minutes. This is what the sensor looks like in working position. I specifically took the photo in low lighting to emphasize the role of the LED. At values below 1000, it lights up green, which means good air quality, above, orange and red, when the concentration of carbon dioxide reaches a critical level. This helps to understand the overall picture without closely examining the numbers. In automations, the sensor can participate only in the triggers section, which is logical since no actions can be performed with it, unlike, for example, a socket or a lamp. As a trigger, you can set any of the parameters measured by the device to match, greater than or equal to, and less than or equal to. Device usage options, in climate scenarios, heating control, humidification, similar to conventional temperature and humidity sensors, as well as notifications about the need to ventilate. Or, if you have the appropriate equipment, its control is also possible. Let's return to the plugin. The main page, as I already said, displays the parameters of each of the sensor's sensors: temperature, humidity, and carbon dioxide level. By clicking on any of them, you will be taken to the history page, where you can view the graph in various time intervals. In the settings, you can set limits for each of the parameters. It is to them that the built-in beeper will react and the LED color will change. In addition, there is the option to disable the beeper, which, by the way, can also be done with the buttons. There is LED brightness adjustment and sending push notifications from the application. In the General Settings section, compatibility with IFPZXWWO, Google Home, and Amazon Alexa is indicated. But the Matter protocol is universal, so my compatibility check will be somewhat different. And I will start with Apple HomeKit. First, I decided to check the possibility of parallel connection without removing the device from the Ewelink system. Let me remind you that when using a gateway with Matter support, it is possible to work with devices connected to it simultaneously from several systems. The addition process is standard. We scan the QR code on the instruction manual, once again emphasizing the point that the instruction, or at least the page with the code, is important to keep. If you have several identical devices, then you should figure out how to associate the code with the corresponding device. Unfortunately, parallel connection did not work. I tried several times. The tablet from which the connection was made was connected to the 2.4 GHz network, but the result was the same every time. Now let's remove the device from Ewelink, in which case it will be completely reset to factory settings. And once again, we will repeat the process of connecting in HomeKit. Now there are no problems. The sensor was instantly identified as an air quality monitor. We draw the conclusion that the sensor, at one point in time, can work only in one system. Connecting to Ewelink makes sense only as a one-time action to check firmware updates. Despite the fact that compatibility with HomeKit was not declared, thanks to support of the Universal Matter protocol, the device was successfully added. On the application screen, it is displayed at the top, similar to other climate sensors. The only thing is, when opening the sensor plugin, I did not see temperature parameters. There is only an air quality assessment and values of carbon dioxide content and relative humidity. But considering that support was not declared at all and the key parameter in this device is precisely the CO2 value, the result is excellent. Now let's check compatibility with Google Home. Here support is declared. First, for the purity of the experiment, without removing it from Apple HomeKit. No miracle happened. If the device has already been added somewhere, then it will not be able to work in another system. Only in one place. I return to HomeKit and remove it from there. The sensor resets the settings again and switches to pairing mode. As expected, after that, the addition process continued without problems. The device was detected by the system. Here, even an image is displayed, corresponding to the real appearance of the sensor. The addition was successful. In Google Home, all parameters were displayed: temperature, humidity, carbon dioxide concentration, and an overall assessment of air quality in the room. The declared support corresponds to reality. And now it is time to move on to Home Assistant. Here I no longer experiment. I immediately remove the sensor from Google Home. For adding, I use the official Home Assistant application connected to my main working server. I go to the integration section and look for Matter Server. You will find a link to a lesson on its installation in the description under the video. Here I choose to add a new device. The option, My device is connected to another controller, is suitable for cases of using a Matter gateway. You can also learn more about this from another of my videos. The link is in the description. The next step launches the QR code scanner, and we will once again need the instruction manual from the sensor. The subsequent steps are identical to how I added the device in Google Home, with the exception that at the final step it is added to Home Assistant, where it will now reside permanently. After that, the device appears in the Matter integration list. Here, digital values from all three sensors are available: temperature, humidity, and carbon dioxide content, as well as an overall assessment of air quality status. In addition, you can view extended information about its connection. Once again, I will give you my recommendation on storing sensor data history. Use the approach, not storing everything indiscriminately, as a result of which tens and hundreds of gigabytes of unnecessary information accumulate on your disk, but only what you really need. Believe me, what is actually needed there is only a few % of the total volume. Specifically in this case, I specify for storage in the database 3 sensors with digital values: CO2 level, temperature, and humidity. First, I will conduct a comparison based on the readings of the key sensor, CO2. As a reference for comparison, I will use the Qingping CGS1 sensor. The main thing for me is not so much the complete coincidence of values, which I do not expect, but the reaction of the sensor to changes in environmental parameters. And judging by this graph, both sensors react almost identically. At the same time, Qingping consistently shows a value lower by about 100 ppm than SONOFF. Such a discrepancy has no practical impact at all. The recommendations for ventilating the room are the same. I decided to check the temperature and humidity graphs after installing the sensor in the place where it will be located on a permanent basis. Taking into account that it stands on a windowsill and the Xiaomi Zigbee sensor, with which the comparison will take place, is further away, in the room, small deviations in readings are expected, but as I said earlier, I am more interested in the trend. As we can see, the shape of the temperature graphs is almost identical, but data from the review subject is transmitted much more frequently, so it manages to react to point changes that remain unnoticed by the Zigbee sensor. The same applies to humidity. The readings on the Zigbee sensor are higher, as they should be, since it is located closer to the air humidifier, but the shape of the graphs is the same. The averaged value will give an overall picture of the room as a whole. Based on the tests carried out, I can conclude that this is indeed a functional and practical household gadget. The price is slightly higher than that of Zigbee sensors without a screen. A review of such you can find in the description under this video, but lower than that of sensors with a screen from Qingping or Acura. The presence of a screen and an LED indicating the air condition allows you to visually control its readings, which is very convenient. Perhaps the beeper will be useful to someone, but I disabled it for myself. I believe that such a sensor should be in every room where people spend a sufficiently long time. That's all. I hope this video was interesting and useful for you. I would be grateful for your likes. They help promote the video on YouTube. If you are not yet subscribed to my channel, now is the time to do it right now. In the description under the video you will find all the necessary links to stores where you can purchase this sensor, as well as to my social networks, Telegram channels, and a group for discussing smart home issues. Join us, it will be interesting. Thank you for your attention. See you next time, and peace to everyone.